Hello everyone, welcome to Studental. My name is Dr. Vaibhav Garg and today's topic is working length estimation in endodontics. It's a very important topic both for academic purpose and for clinicians as well. So let's see what unfolds today. As we all know, in today's time, without GPS, nothing is working. For every small task, we need GPS systems so that we can achieve things or reach the destination earlier in time without any hassle. Radiographs also provide us a similar roadmap to each and everyone, and every tooth showcases its internal anatomy through radiograph. Clinician's skill will decide how good uh, the root canal will turn up, because the skill of reading the radiographs properly, understanding the anatomy well, will take the clinician to next level. The results of root canal therapy also vary according to the root canal shapes and the very understanding of today's topic, that is working length determination. So contents for today's seminar are the definition, anatomical considerations we should take care of, preoperative considerations and the things that we do, clinical estimation of working length, how is it done, the electronic method of apex locator and their accuracy, clinical significance of each, recent advances that we are seeing in today's time and what the generations are approaching towards, and the references. So according to definition, working length is defined as the distance from the coronal point to the point at which coronal reference point to the point at which canal preparation and the obturation should terminate. I should repeat this. Working length is defined as the distance from the coronal reference point, usually the incisal edges of the tooth or the cusp of the posterior teeth, to the point at which the canal preparation or the cleaning and shaping and the obturation should terminate, usually the anatomic apex, or it is also called as the canal terminus. So what all topics we should actually understand for this working length determination topic? Few topics are very significant. We should actually understand what is the difference between anatomic apex and radiographic apex, what is apical foramen and apical constriction, and what is cemento-dentinal junction and its significance. So let's take up each point individually and start. So according to Cutler, the anatomic apex is defined as the tip or end of the root determined morphologically. That means when you see this this diagram illustration down, you can see that there is a green zone that is there. So the area where it terminates, the green zone, it is called the anatomic apex. Usually this is the entry point of all the nerve bundles, the blood vessels and the periodontal tissue that is in connection with the pulp tissue of the canal. Coming to radiographic apex, it is defined as the tip or end of the root determined radiographically. You should understand that anatomic apex and radiographic apex are two different terms. When you see this blue line here and you take a radiograph, you will see that the radiograph shows the last point of the tooth, or the last apex, or the area where the tooth terminates. It will be defined as the radiographic apex. It is just a 2D image and two-dimensional image, and it can be different from the anatomic apex, and mostly it is different. Anatomic apex can be away from the radiographic apex from 0.5 mm to 3 mm in different teeth. Let's take another example to differentiate radiographic apex and anatomical apex in a very clear picture. As you can see, this anatomic apex is a point where the obturation material is extruding out, and this is far away from what the radiographic apex is. Radiographic apex can be seen, it will be illustrated on a radiograph, and anatomic apex is the actual point of junction of the pulp with the periodontium. So let us understand what is apical foramen, and it is also known as major diameter. It is usually confused with another minor diameter. Another topic is the minor diameter. So apical foramen is the main apical opening of the root canal. It is the frequently eccentric located away from the anatomic or radiographic apex. That means when the radiograph is taken, or when you see the please look at the apical foramen area. It is the entry point of where the periodontal tissue and the junction of the pulp. So it is that area. So as the radiograph or this illustration tells, it is the wider area of the apical end of the apical constriction. It is the apical portion of the root canal having the narrowest diameter. If you see this triangular area or the apical delta area, the root canal where it almost terminates, or there is a constriction, the smallest diameter where it appears, it is known as apical constriction. So another topic is cemento-dentinal junction. It is a region where the dentine and cementum are united. It is a histological landmark and cannot be located clinically or radiographically. You should remember, it is a histological landmark. It is a favorite viva question also sometimes. So how will you see clinically cemento-dentinal junction? So the student should remember, it is a histological landmark, not a clinical landmark. So it can be away from the actual anatomic root apex at least 0.5 mm. So as you can see, there is dentine inside and cementum outside, and they merge at a point. So where they merge, it is called cemento-dentinal junction. So what all preoperative conditions that we have to see in this radiograph? If you see, there is a restoration over the tooth, and if a clinician wants to gauge how big the burr should be or how deep the excess opening burr should enter, so usually most of the clinicians on a radiograph, they try and gauge it with the help of another burr or excess opening burrs. So usually 7 in a healthy tooth, in a healthy molar. Please remember this point, in a healthy molar, when the cusps are not treated, usually the difference between the cusp tip and the pulp horn is usually around 6.5 to 7 mm. So if you go that deep, definitely you can de-roof the entire pulp and you will enter the pulp chamber. So preoperative reading of radiographs, one can measure the distance between the roof and the floor of the pulp chamber and the occlusal surface to determine the depth of the excess cavity. And all this calculation of how deep we should go using the burr, the actual burr that we will be using, it will help us in avoiding any perforations that might happen during the treatment itself. Coming to preoperative considerations like bending the instruments, some cases the radiographs show us that the canals are already towards a curve. They have a curve, and like few canals definitely have their own curve, like the central incisors, the maxillary central incisors have a palatal curve, or the buccal curve is present on the palatal canal of maxillary molars. So bending is always helpful. So how it is bent? Let's see. You can take a gauze piece in one hand between the two fingers and the instrument that you wish to use for working length determination. Usually a 06 or a 08 or 10 number K file are used initially in bigger canals like the maxillary central incisors. Even a 15 number file is introduced in certain cases, not all cases. So you can actually bend the file using the sterile gauze piece, and in a certain level you can bend according to your experience. Also, for bending there is a sterile instrument called as endo bender from Cyberon Endo. They have developed an instrument that can give you a particular curvature of the file, and you will not have to use a sterile gauge. The instrument can be sterilized and can be used multiple times. So what all in initially when we were learning about working length, so we saw that we were talking about reference points. So what are reference points? For central incisors and lateral incisors of both maxilla and mandible, these incisal edges are the reference points. Okay, and in case they are fractured or they are very thin, they have to be removed. The fractured part has to be removed. It has to be very stable. Accordingly, similarly in molars, the cuspal tip of the molars or the posterior teeth are considered as the reference points. They have to be smooth and flat. If they have a cusp or a curve is there, it can change the working length estimation and the results can vary. For that, most clinicians, because if there is a case of acute pulpitis, to relieve the tooth out of pain, also to get stabilized working length readings, as you can see with a flattening burr, we can flatten or we can grind the cusp of the teeth. So what is the speciality about the different kind of stoppers that we see? So I should remind you that once we are inserting the K file inside the canal for purpose of working length estimation, the file, why there is a silicone rubber stopper, or why it is there. So the K files, that 06% or 08 or 10 number K file, they're actually flexible enough to go into all the curvatures of the canal. Also, they are stiff enough to cut through the debris, the pulp tissue or the necrotic tissue that is available, or certain amount of soft dentine that is there. So it can go through that. Accordingly, when you have estimated the working length and you want to go into the canal, always make sure it is slightly short of the actual radiographic apex that you have estimated. These silicone stops are either tear shaped, or they have certain cuts in them, or they can be marked. Why these are important? Why these are shapes are given? Actually, silicone stops need not to be removed. They can be sterilized along with the files. Secondly, these different shapes, teardrop or this cut, if there is a curvature and you have pre-bended the file, it will always help you in going through and understanding. So when the file is inside the canal, you can actually locate on which side the curvature is going. Once you have removed the file, you will see that the curvature of the file, the bend of the file, and the tear shaped stopper or the new shape or the marked stopper, they can help you understand the curvature of the file in real time. So diagnostic or exploratory instruments are 6, 8 or 10, as we all know. They are flexible as well as stiff. So once this K file is introduced, these curvatures have to be felt with your tactile sensation, and when the file is getting inside the canal, you have to be very slow. You do not have to rush to reach to the apex. You have to just understand, explore the canal anatomy. This is also called scouting. A very flexible file like number 8 or number 10 are usually helpful in scouting. The scouting process in today's world also helps us in finding multiple canal multiple portal of exits, and they're usually the scouting helps us to understand the curvatures that are available within the canal. So as you see that once the file was inserted into the canal, right now after the insertion, when you remove the file, keep it aside, now you can take that the preoperative radiograph that was available with you, and you can check it against a endodontic ruler or an endodontic scale. You can see it has to be gauged. In this example, if we see that central incisor is there, the preoperative radiograph is giving us an overall estimate of 23 mm. So after that estimation has been done with using the preoperative radiograph, and we already know certain amount of curvature is there within the canal, after this pre-flaring is recommended. Pre-coronal enlargement is called, or pre-flaring is done. It can be used with GG drill or Gates drill. It can be done with iso-reamers. All the different rotary systems in the world have their own specific pre-endo or pre-coronal enlargement instruments, or endo flares, or what we say coronal enlargement files. So every instrument, every system in the world, and every rotary system has their own enlargement system. So that helps us in removing some extra dentine, and also it helps us in understanding if there is any constriction in the coronal area. So it is removed. Then towards the estimated working length, you should push your file slightly with almost like what you say reaming is done. Reaming means slight push, slight apical pressure is applied onto the file, and you try to reach the working length, the estimated working length, almost 0.5 mm short to it. So once you feel that the radiograph has to be taken, because the estimated working length that you were seeing and your stopper was fitting, it has reached the reference point, you should take a radiograph. If you feel even if my stopper is falling short of the estimated working length, but you are feeling constriction within the canal with your fingers, you should stop the procedure. Don't hush up, or don't make sure that you are pushing the debris. Just wait, take a radiograph. Surely you will be able to manage the case. So mostly you would have reached the working length. In this scenario, after, you have to just think of it, if the file that you have inserted has gone beyond the apex 1 mm, or it is falling short 1 mm, you should adjust the entire file at this point, and you should not create any ledges, or you should avoid doing any mistakes at this point of time. If you feel that your file has gone beyond the apex, or it is short of the apex, it can be adjusted. What I'm saying is, just remember, if the difference between the estimated working length and what you are seeing on the radiograph is between 0.5 mm to 1 mm, just adjust your file and do not take a radiograph. But yes, if you feel that there was a difference more than 1 mm beyond the apex, or your file was falling short of the apex more than 1 mm, you adjust your file and take another radiograph. Let's see with this example. The radiograph shows that the tooth is around 23 mm, around 22-23 mm. We have placed the stopper on the file, and with the estimated radiographic length at 22.5 mm. When we inserted the K file within the tooth, we could see that it was exactly matching the radiographic apex, and then we adjust the K file short of the apex. Please remember, it has to be short of the apex, 0.5 to 1 mm always, because as you all know, in the previous part of the presentation we have told that the radiographic apex is different from the anatomic apex, and anatomic apex is always short of the radiographic apex. So please make sure your file is retrieved almost 0.5 to 1 mm, and this is your working length. If you create any longer working length, or you create shorter of the working length, your treatment results will differ. So make sure you have a steady reference point and the right way of taking working radiograph. So once you feel that the tactile sensation is there and it is falling short of the apex, it has not reached the right working length, you should remove the file. See to it that the constrictions are not damaging the flutes of the file. If you feel that the flutes have been damaged in the first insertion itself, please change your file. Make sure a healthy or in a new file, a sterile file, enters the canal for exploring the curvatures and the constrictions. Just see this illustration. I'll show you. Can you see some extra canals here? One canal. If we took this radiograph from a particular angle, you can see this central incisor has, this lateral incisor has 2 canals. This canine has 2 canals. This premolar shows extra periodontal lining. That also means that there is some anatomical difference, or some different anatomy is available within the tooth. So if these teeth have to be treated for endo, we have to be very careful regarding these extra canals. If in this photograph also, on the funnier side, if we don't have an extra look or an extra radiograph or a particular angle, if we don't see, there can be a misreading. So it is just an example what we show, that 2 length determination radiograph should be taken, one at a particular angle, followed by a mesial or a distal movement of the radiographic X-ray material, and another radiograph has to be taken. So this shows that we could see only one file or one lining here, but there was something different. There were 2 PDL linings here, and yes, there was another canal that was available. So that helps us in reaching to the actual anatomic apex of the case. It also helps us in exploring if there is any other extra canal. Similarly, in this case, if you see that we have taken a radiograph, if you see that there are 2 canals, but they might have different portal of exit. So one portal of exit is here, another is stopping here. So once the obturation was seen, you can see some radiographic material extending here. That means if we don't have the right kind of area or the knowledge of the anatomy of canal, and we don't take multiple radiographs for understanding the anatomy while taking working length radiographs, we might miss out on major anatomy that might lead to the failure of the case, or the treatment will fail in a certain amount of time. So why clinical estimation is always short? If you see that cemento-dentinal junction is almost 0.5 mm away from the anatomic apex. If we see this is an anatomical radiographic apex, you should always keep it away from it. Your entire canal preparation should finish at the apical constriction or the minor diameter. It should always finish your preparation, your files, your GP point, your sealer, your obturation material. It should end here. Beyond this, there is another area. This is called the periapical area. If you keep your working length higher or larger than the actual working length that we are suggesting, you might push the necrotic tissue or the dentinal debris that is prepared during the cleaning and shaping process, or you might widen up the apical constriction. This might lead to over obturation or the material of obturation going beyond this. Also, the debris that goes beyond the apical constriction can cause severe pain to patients. This is also known as mid-treatment flare-up. I would suggest, as a clinician and as an educator, you should always avoid any pain that happens during the root canal and due to the root canal treatment that is happening between the appointments also. So make sure you are just short of the working length and let your treatment help the patient in relieving the pain and reducing the possibilities of flare up or extreme pain during the treatment. Yes, we do come across apical resorption cases, so what all we should do? In apical resorption cases, because of the acidic environment in the periapical area, the entire anatomy of the tooth structure is destroyed, and almost 1 or 2 mm of the area has got osteoclastic activity. Because of this osteoclastic activity, lot of a lot of tissue is there, lot of pus cells can be there, lot of necrotic material can be there. So what we do is, clinically it is suggested that when the radiograph is taken for working length in resorption cases, you should keep the entire working length at least 2 mm short from the apical constriction that you can feel. If you feel the apical constriction is almost at 2 mm short of the radiographic or the estimated working length, you should keep another 2 mm short. So if you keep this entire obturation or this working length short from the radiographic apex, it will help you in 2 ways. It will help in containing, or the preparation will be limited to this area, so it will contain all the obturation material that you will place later on, or the intracanal medicament that you will place here. Also, over instrumentation will not be done, because over instrumentation in these cases will reduce the prognosis of the case, and this case will go into failure for sure. So make sure in apical resorption cases working length is 2 mm short of the radiographic apex. In today's world, when everything is digital, we are moving very fast. The method of taking working length with these methods is almost historic. Nowadays, the normal IOP or the intraoral periapical radiographs, analog type, have been changed and fast changing into RVGs or radio visuographic systems. Also, similarly, when these systems were not there, and few dentists used to find out the radiographic length of the tooth, they used to have some flexible non-metal meshes, but they were very inconvenient and they were not giving the significant results. There were a lot of errors in that calculation. In today's world, everything is digital. Why digital? Because you can keep a record of it. It is more trustworthy and does not need any calibration, and usually standardization of treatment can be done. The same reading you will be reading, your teachers will be reading the same, other clinicians in your clinic will be reading the same, your students, your friends will be reading you will get the same reading of anything that is digital. So it is convenient. We should move on to digital phase of life in dentistry. Even apex locators are the digital part of the working length estimation. Let's move on to this slide. So how does an electronic apex locator work? So working length is determined by comparing the electrical resistance of the periodontal membrane with that of the gingiva surrounding the root. I know it is a bit different to understand it. Let's see what all part are there. In an electronic apex locator area, you have two areas, two wires that are coming out. One is the probe holder or the lip, or the it holds the file or the K file or the reamer that you are using for working length purpose. The another part will have a lip clip. This will hold on to the gingiva or the buccal mucosa of the tooth, so of the jaw where you're working. So these are the main parts: one probe holder, one lip clip, and the electronic apex locator that you have. So what they do is there is an electrical resistance that is predetermined. So they actually capture it like 2 electrodes. keeping it simple to understand. So we have two types of classifications. The one that is shown here, please try to understand it. It is much easy. Uh, the types of apex locators were like based on direct current. They were the first generation apex locators that were made by Suzuki and Sunanda, and they are not used anymore because they were resistance based. Not only resistance based, but what happened is they were giving errors results due to the presence of fluids like pus or electrolytes within the canal. So next what happened is they used alternating currents and resistant type were made. So root canal meter, endometric meter were made, and endometer 2 was also made. Following that resistance type, they were also giving some differences due to the pus formation or the electrolyte or saliva that was present. So impedance type were introduced like Sono Explorer. The impedance type were low frequency based. What happened is they were not giving right readings due to the availability of fluids of saliva like saliva or other electrolytes, and to that higher frequency level was introduced. So high frequency, they had special coating onto their electrodes, and that's why they were giving better results even in the presence of fluids. Coming to the frequency type, we have subtraction type like index or neosono, or ratio type like 2 frequency, where around 400 hertz of and 10 hertz were used. Different frequencies were used, and root ZX is one of the finest results of, or examples we can say. Even today root ZX proves very high acceptability in the world of endodontics. New generations have turned up, but they are really good. Coming to 5 frequency or multi frequency like apex finders, or what we can say, there are different like elements. Another product is elements, or from Dentsply there are different products like Pixie or Propex 2. These are the new generation apex locators. They have a negligible chances of giving wrong readings, or they are very accurate. So they can be accurate up to 97-98% in readings. That means if you take 100 readings, only 2 readings can be eccentric. So the only problem might be only slight fluids, or there is a difference between the batteries have not been charged, or the electrodes have some sort of corrosion. So if you just recheck everything, make sure the electronic apex locator is right in place and all the batteries are fine, the instrument is neat and clean, you have used all the methods, all the steps are correct, you will definitely get good results. So the apex locators have evolved over a period of time, from big screens and tabletops to very handheld and very small apex locators, like you can wear them on the ring. Also in new age, some touch screen type apex locators have been introduced. These are very helpful, and they are an integral part of endodontic treatment in today's time. No clinician will attempt doing a root canal without the help of apex locators. So how does an apex locator give you a reading that it has reached the apex? So all the apex locators have this common area called as 0.0 or 0.5. This is the apical area that you have. So if the electrode that you have placed you have attached to the file, and there is a lip clip, and you get a reading between 0.0 to 0.5, you are in a safe zone. You approximately 0.5 mm short of the apex, or you are just behind the constriction. So if you get this 0 reading or 0.3 reading, you are in a very safe zone and you can work upon that. Certain brands ask you to calibrate your apex locators according to your personal choices and results. If your file is going beyond the apex, it will say over apex and it will show you a red zone. Most of the systems show red zone or bright yellow zones. If you are very short of the apex, that means your reading is not reached this safe zone or blue zone or green zone. That means you should remove the file. Make sure you should go beyond the slight constriction that you are feeling, and you should take a rereading for the radiograph with the radiograph and apex locator. So why we insist on using apex locators in today's time for taking working length? As we all know, we were talking about radiographic apex and the anatomic apex in previous slides in the initial part of the presentation. You can see this radiographic apex and this anatomic apex, they are so far. If a clinician is not using an apex locator and they take the radiograph, they will surely reach till the radiographic apex, and they will be happy that they have reached the full length, and they will consider this length as their best working length and prepare the entire tooth. But yes, if you see clinically what is happening inside the tooth, you have gone beyond the anatomic apex. You have created lot of debris. That debris would have gone beyond the apex, and over instrumentation would have happened. This will also lead to over obturation and lot of pain to the patient. You can see how short the apex should have been, or the working length should have been almost 1.5 mm short of the working length that was taken with the radiograph only. Remember, apex locators are not the final thing. They are not a replacement to radiographs. They are adjunct to a radiograph. That means they have a synergistic effect. They help taking radiographs better for working length purposes. Make sure you are using the working length radiograph in a very justified way. Do not consider apex locators as a replacement for not taking radiographs. Only in certain cases where you are not taking radiographs, like very elderly people who are not in the condition to cooperate during the dental treatment, or they need treatment very fast. Also, very small children in which radiographs cannot be taken very frequently. Another case like pregnant women, where we avoid taking radiographs to a certain extent. Avoid, I am not saying not taking, avoid multiple radiographs. We can use working length radiographs only single way, and use apex locators very cautiously. Another radiograph that I wish to show you, there's caries and we wanted to take the radiograph. When we read the radiograph or we interpreted the radiograph, we could see there was a slight streak here. So, and this radiolucency shows the exit of the pulp canal, the exit. So it shows it here. It comes with slight clinical experience. When you do start doing radiographs and your teachers teach you, or your guides help you with understanding the radiographs better, you will understand that the location of the periapical lesion is also giving you certain idea where the canal will exit. So when we took the initial radiograph, the K file was beyond the apex. Okay, so it was a super loose K file. Super loose means it was going beyond apex. So we took when we took the radiograph, we could see it is way beyond the apex, maybe more than 1 mm. So we readjusted the radiograph and we took another radiograph to make sure we have reached just the apex of the canal, or the anatomic apex. Remember, anatomic apex is the place where your obturation, your BMP and your obturation should finish. It should terminate there. So these apex locators help us in reaching the actual anatomic apex nicely without over preparation or over obturations. Please, these instruments are very sensitive. They have to be used judiciously. You cannot throw away them, or you cannot misuse them. They are very delicate instruments because they have electrical circuit boards inside. They have to be serviced at time to time, and they should have battery check every year. So how you should buy a apex locator? I'm talking from a clinician's point of view. How when you plan to buy your apex locator, how you should buy it. So check yourself for 4 to 5 cases and match their accuracy along with the radiographs. Coming to that, you should always ask for warranty and charges for additional accessories. Check with or without rubber dam how the accuracy is coming up and create your own conclusion. See to the portability, durability and accuracy of the instrument. Portability means it has to be tabletop, and if you wish to keep it very close to the patient on their shoulders, then it can be kept. The kind of wires they have should be very durable, and the accuracy you have to check it with your own wisdom. You should always ask the company for battery life and repair possibilities. It should not happen that you buy a product and you are not able to get it repaired once it get destroyed, or there is some fault that comes up and you want to repair it, but it is not happening. That should not happen. You take a sincere decision if once you are buying it. So how few people ask how accurate an apex locator can be. Apex locators are usually very accurate. Learning curve is not very high, but the clinician's acumen comes very good. So what happens is, when you do a radiograph, take a radiograph and you do a particular root canal along with the help of x-rays and the electronic apex locator, it has been seen that 98-99% success rate is there. That means you will not be misguided when you are using apex locators in most of the cases. So what are the new advances that have come up? Why you should know about apex locators? Because now apex locators have been integrated with endomotors. Like given just 2 examples here, there are many examples in today's time. There are many companies that are bringing the product. They have a handpiece and an integrated apex locator with them. So what happens is, why it helps? When the file reaches the apex while preparing or doing the cleaning and shaping process, it understands that it has reached the apex and it goes in reverse direction, it comes out and it does not prepare anymore. So it becomes very safe and there is no over instrumentation that is happening. Another advantage is that these instruments are very tactile sensitive. They have a very superior sort of electronic system inside. So what happens is, when they feel the apical constriction, they stop. So even if the apex locator, you can, as a manually, if you are taking radiograph and you can have a different tactile sensation, these machines are very accurate. These machines really help you in doing root canal preparations very safely within the limits of the canal. So what are the recent advances that have come up with the radiographs or the RVGs? That radiovisuographic softwares, they usually have an endodontic scale or a measurements tool. So as you are taking estimated radiographic lens on the 2D image of an analog radiograph, what happened is, there were chances that the images were elongated due to the angulation of the X-ray machine. So these are the basic disadvantages of analog radiographs, that some shortening or some elongation of the radiograph can happen. Yes, we all know that this can happen, and this might lead to overestimation or underestimation of working length. But when you take a digital radiograph or radiovisuograph is taken, the softwares are calibrated in such a way that even if there is elongation of the length or there is shortening of the radiograph, these calibrations or these scales or these endodontic scales, they give you the same reading. They give you the estimated working length in a similar way. So this will be helpful on daily basis. Coming to what is exact working length, how do you actually find out what is exact working length without even treating the tooth? In certain cases, when we are doing research studies or for guided endodontic treatments, CBCT or cone beam computed tomography is taken. These are the 3D images of the tooth in real time. So what happens is the softwares are good enough to understand the actual working length or tracing the entire canal, where it exists and where it starts, where should be the point of entry from the reference point, also till where the portal of exit is there. So in the as you can see in this image that I have shown, 2.28, it is the exact working length that is anticipated when the CBCT image was taken for this particular case. So why such accuracy is required? Why you need to have such accuracy? Because in today's time, when we are doing guided endodontics and the special guides are made so that very minimal amount of dentine is removed and we have a very safe access within the canals, these CBCT images, they are recalibrated, and they help us in understanding even before we start the treatment. They help us understand the true anatomy, or within the anatomy what all curvatures or difficulties we can predict, and accordingly the what kind of size of preparation is required. There is a possibility that a very small apical exit is there or a very big canal is there. Accordingly we can choose the right kind of file with minimal chances of any accidents or iatrogenic errors. That is why all this newer advances are required in today's time. I hope this advancement is happening a lot more frequently, and in coming time we all get to do the endodontic treatment with so much of precision. So thank you for the lecture and the kind of patience you guys have shown today in understanding the basics of working length determination. The most of the content was used from Grossman's Endodontic Practice 12th edition. This is also in adjunct with the Pathways of Pulp, the 10th edition I have used as reference. Thank you once again, and we will come back with more lectures on Studently. Best of luck.